And showtime! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. Look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network, also a co-host of this program. I am joined this week, as I am every week, by our other co-host, Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement advisor to MSPs and other IT providers. Eric, how goes it?
Going great, Rich. We are rounding the corner in the middle of February, right? We're already in the middle of February 2023. Man, how quickly is time going by in 2023? I mean, it just seems like it was yesterday that it was the holidays. And here we are, rounding the corner to the middle of February. That means that the first half of the first quarter of 2023 is almost upon us.
And in addition to the Super Bowl happening this weekend, we're also days away from pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training. Baseball is happening soon, Eric. That is a little hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's well, and let's hope that our preferred teams do better this year than they did last year. Our family's teams are the Rams and the Angels, so I'm just gonna leave it there for everybody. Okay.
Yeah, enough said. Well, let's dive into our story of the week here. And folks, this is torn straight from the headlines. As we record this episode, this news broke just a few hours ago. And I call that out for, among other reasons, for the fact that ordinarily when I talk about something on this show, I have both written about it and talked about it on the other podcasts I do, ChannelPro Weekly. I'm kind of winging it a little bit here, but this is really interesting. It's from ConnectWise, and they have added an artificial intelligence capability to their ConnectWise Automate and ConnectWise RMM products. Those are both RMM solutions. This artificial intelligence technology, for now, is designed to help automate customer ticketing and issue tracking processes. This is an interesting thing, though, for a number of reasons, Eric. So first of all, I say it's an artificial intelligence technology. They've been using AI at ConnectWise. Kaseya, Enable, a lot of companies are using AI. This is not just AI. This is ChatGPT from OpenAI. This is the big headline-grabbing artificial intelligence technology out there. Just this week, Monday of this week, as we record this, Microsoft grabbed attention all over the world about building OpenAI technology into Edge and Bing. 4 days later, ConnectWise is using ChatGPT in 2 of its 3 RMM products, and this is a down payment on more ambitious plans that they have down the road. Other interesting thing about this, they are not the first vendor to use artificial intelligence to automate core managed services business processes. Just within recent weeks, I know on this show we've talked about Pia, which is a startup from Australia that for some short time now has been selling a managed services automation tool that makes heavy use of AI to automate level 1 and level 2 tickets. There's Roost and MSP bots and a bunch of different smaller companies that specialize in using artificial intelligence in RMM functions. ConnectWise is, I think, the first one to do this kind of ticketing automation with AI, and I'm nearly positive they're the first to use OpenAI in their product. And the third and final significant thing about this, Eric, you have to kind of go back to November. I'm pretty sure we would have talked about it then, but when I was at IT Nation Connect, the ConnectWise event back in November, one of the takeaways for me from that show was that this new sort of next generation platform for the entire ConnectWise product set that they call ASIO is kind of a strategic game changer for them. It took them a long time to build it, and it debuted the November before last. It's only been around a short time, but they really made a point of emphasizing that now that we finally got it in place, it's going to allow us to do things faster, to pivot when we see an opportunity more clear or more quickly. And we saw an example of that last November when at the IT Nation Connect show, ConnectWise was displaying a cloud management tool that they built on the ASIO platform in 3 weeks. Now, it was a prototype. It wasn't a production-ready system, but it was a pretty complete system. It took them 3 weeks to create it because they could do it on this platform, this very flexible platform that they had built. How many weeks has the world been talking about ChatGPT? It's longer than 3. but it's a pretty short time. And they saw the opportunity that I'm sure a lot of other companies see in terms of incorporating Chat GPT into existing products. And they got it done very, very quickly because, and they called this out in the press release they posted today, thanks to ASIO. So a number of different ways, Eric, in which this announcement today is kind of interesting news.
Yeah, first to market definitely provides some advantages for ConnectWise, and I think this is representative, Rich, of the future of not only our industry but many industries moving forward. I mean, this AI technology is really coming into its own, and it's accelerating at such a rapid pace. I mean, you called out how long have we been talking about chat GPT? I'll tie it back to, I think it's probably since the beginning of the year, right? I mean, this is we're in February, and all of this news and all of this interest and all of these, vendors and manufacturers are rallying behind this in a way that, it's like a gold rush. It's like a land grab. And I've been reading, been paying a lot of attention to this conversation because, selfishly, I'm looking at how can I use this in my business, and I've got a few ideas, right, on how to leverage it. I think it's a game changer, and I think that first mover advantage that ConnectWise is now capitalizing on is really going to serve, its partners. Um, and stakeholders very, very well.
I think this is going to be a huge, huge phenomenon in managed services, particularly over the next, call it, year or two. But it's going to happen very, very quickly, as we've seen already, where you're going to see AI used as sort of the next big tool in productivity and increasing the scalability of what MSPs are going to do. It's going to be really interesting to watch. It's going to be interesting to watch businesses of all kinds leverage the power of tools like ChatGPT, but I think it's going to be quick. We will see in fairly rapid fashion how much it changes the landscape in the managed services world. Now, Eric, you were talking about first mover advantage for ConnectWise here. I'm going to do my best to make a bridge to your tip of the week. You got first mover advantage in something important like AI. That's going to make your company more valuable. Your tip of the week has something to do with stuff you want MSPs to do to make their business more valuable.
Yep, that's exactly right, Rich. And I've been doing more and more M&A consulting and helping organizations either prepare to exit at the highest valuation or transition after an acquisition and integrate these organizations. And we've talked about this in the past, but we haven't really delved deep into kind of what the key drivers that can increase an organization's value or can decrease an organization's value. And without getting too far into the weeds, there's a couple of ways that an MSP organization or any business really is valuable. But MSPs are a little bit special because of that recurring revenue component, that secret sauce, that pixie dust that makes them very, very attractive. Hence has driven all of this, accelerated activity that we've been seeing in the industry for the last several years, with more to come. So one way to value an organization is based upon a multiple of its adjusted EBITDA. It's I'm just going to call it net profit, right, with some adjustments in there to kind of normalize it, and then a multiple against it. So depending upon how much net profit an organization generates, there's a multiple associated with that, which can vary, from 4 times to, sometimes 8 times or higher, depending upon different variables and the size of that EBITDA number as well. And we get kind of an idea of what a valuation against EBITDA is. But then there's also another valuation that occurs, Rich, and I call this a revenue type evaluation. So for instance, let's take a typical MSP. We've got revenue that comes from resale, so hardware, software licensing, things like that, cloud subscriptions. We've got revenue that comes from labor, reactive labor, unstructured labor, call it time and materials, call it break fix labor. We've got projects, and that's another revenue stream that we typically find. And then we have, managed services, and then we may have a couple of other things here. Now, when we're looking at these different revenue types and we're valuing each one of those, we're associating a multiple to each one of those as well. And that multiple will vary based upon the type of revenue that that organization is realizing. So for instance, I'll give you the, the best type of revenue because it comes valued at the highest multiple, and that is your traditional managed services revenue. That is the labor or the revenue that's generated against, managed service agreements, not block time, not reactive time and materials. That revenue currently is valued at about $1.45 for each dollar realized. So think if we generated $1 million in managed services revenue, multiply that by 1.45, and that revenue is valued at $1,450,000, let's say, right? Now let's compare that, Rich, to reactive break fix labor. The multiple currently for reactive break fix labor is, compared to managed services multiple, a paltry 45 cents. So for every dollar realized for reactive break fix unstructured labor, we're going to multiply it against 0.45. So obviously $1 million worth of reactive break fix labor would only be valued at $450,000 compared to that $1.45 million if it were managed services revenue. So each one of these different revenue types has a different multiple. All are less than managed services labor. So when we're looking at building value in our organizations as an MSP, I encourage our channel pros and MSP audience to move more of that labor and that labor focus toward managed services labor and stop delivering reactive break fix services sooner rather than later.
It's an absolutely critical point. And you've put in very quantifiable terms something that I have heard in more anecdotal terms from M&A advisors. Even, I've had the opportunity to speak with a private equity investor or two about this kind of thing. So, the single biggest variable or number that anyone who would potentially acquire your firm is looking at is EBITDA, or net profit, as you were saying. But the thing that makes MSPs attractive to these investors is the recurring revenue, period. So if you have a high EBITDA number, but it's all project work, time, and materials, like you were saying, they're not going to be all that interested in you. And there is no magic number. I don't want to make it sound like this is the magic number that matters, but just in conversations I've had with people who are really expert in this area and spend a lot of time there, if, say, less than 60%, 65% of your revenue is recurring revenue, you're probably just not going to be all that interesting as an acquisition target to the companies out there with giant pools of money right now that they're looking to spend on MSP. So it could not be a more crucial point, Eric. The thing that is valuable about your business to a potential purchaser is the managed services piece of it, the recurring revenue. And so to maximize valuations, you want to do as much of that as possible.
Absolutely, Rich. And the other point to consider from the managed service provider's perspective is, I want my technicians to be, highly utilized in as profitable a manner as possible as well. So if I've got them running around doing break fix reactive firefighting, I'm actually falling into that need to hire more technicians, right? And we know, we've talked about the tech labor shortage and how difficult it is to bring on new team members. Just think about shifting what these folks are doing to a more structured way of delivering services that is more profitable, and hopefully you'll get a higher level of realization out of your existing team, and maybe soften some of the rough edges around having to hire as many people as quickly as you need to. Again, it's just kind of an allocation of resources exercise at that point as well. And the final piece that I'll add is, valuation is a very complex process, right? So just, throwing out these valuation numbers is just kind of getting everyone interested in learning more how to do this. It's a very complicated scenario. I mean, I've created, valuation calculators, and, I have them online on my website, but typically for a thumbs eye view, if that's a thing, right? A gut check view, do an EBITDA valuation, and then do a revenue type valuation of your organizations. Grab my calculator, it's free. And then you're going to divide those two, right? So you're going to get an average of both of those to kind of get an idea, because they will be very different in valuation. So there's a lot to it. There's some resources on my site. Folks can learn more.
All right, fantastic. Leaves us with time for just one more story, Eric. And if you needed another proof point that it's not a really good idea to let your kids play with your phone, I got it for you. And it came to us from Michigan just a few weeks ago, where in the Stonehouse family, Dad handed his phone to his son. His son was getting ready for bedtime, wanted to play a game on Dad's phone. Dad handed him the phone, went off to do something else. The kid switched from the game into Grubhub, Eric, and ordered $1,000 worth of food to be delivered from a bunch of different restaurants. The doorbell starts ringing. People are showing up with stuff. At one point in time, so $1,000 worth of food on Grubhub. At one point in time there, the kid placed a $439 order for pizza. And that charge was actually declined by Chase Bank. $439 worth of pizza. So anyway, folks, you really want to be careful about the phone if you're handing that to your kids to play around with.
That reminds me of the humor segment we did a few episodes ago, Rich, where the person had created this way for his goldfish to play, some kind of online game. Can you imagine, letting the goldfish loose on Grubhub? Just interesting. Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us in the 5-Minute Roundup this week. We're going to be back again next week with another episode for you. You know what, folks? We are both a video and a podcast. So if you're watching the video now, but you often listen to podcasts, go to wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Apple, you name it. You're going to find us there. Please, if you can, subscribe, rate, review. We would really appreciate that. Now, if you are listening, but you want to check us out on video, best thing to do is go to the ChannelPro Network channel on YouTube. You can subscribe there as well. And if you click that little bell icon, you'll even get notified when the new episodes go up. By the time you are seeing or listening to this, I will have written an article about this new AI technology from ConnectWise, but you can also get all sorts of other industry news, business growth advice for your company every day at ChannelProNetwork.com. Now, if you want to learn more about Eric and the work he does with his clients, your destination should be ErickSimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. So once again, folks, we thank you very much for joining us. We're going to see you again next week. Until then, please enjoy the rest of your week. Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.